by the way. It's actually something that I have thought about and talked about with friends and colleagues of mine who have backgrounds as Asian American, especially Asian American actors, about the portrayal of Asian Americans as criminals or in the criminal world or the underworld as well. Seeing that in popular culture. Um, is that something that you have thought about or considered or reconciled? Do you think it's overstated? We live in a world of identity and identity politics, and it's always part of a conversation. But it seems to me like you take roles and you play the role.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Here's the thing. We historically have had so little representation on screen in any way
Yeah.
that I don't feel like I can be all like, I'm never going to play a bad Asian. You know what I mean? I sort of feel like you have to take it kind of like role by role. Is there anything about this part that I find offensive? No. Would my not taking the part be like, is it like making a statement like, I don't believe in criminal underworld? Like, there are Asian criminals. I'm going to assume that there are Asian criminals because there's criminals of all kinds across the globe.
Right.
So I'm not going to be like, no, that's terrible. Um, I feel that those kinds of, frankly, I'd rather be represented as an Asian criminal who has some agency as opposed to an Asian, you know, restaurant worker, laundry person.
Right.
Kind of like those, like a food delivery guy, those kinds of parts I think are harder to kind of bend your mind around, because those are the parts that are like, that's exactly how a lot of people perceive Asian people. It's the kind of like, it's like everything else, you have to, if you don't have a diverse, if you don't come from a diverse society, if you're not living in a diverse world for whatever reason, you have to be able to understand that like Asians are going to be part of everything. There are middle class Asians, there are rich Asians, there are poor Asians. They come from all over the globe. Some of them are actually American, but sometimes that part is left out. I sort of, what I object to is just like, here's an Asian person and she's not American, but it's an American story. But we're going to make her like the baddie because she's not from this country. Like that's really tired to me, at this point. Sure. But again, it's like when people would criticize me for doing Avenue Q because Christmas Eve has an accent, and they were like, "Aren't you just perpetuating the stereotype of like Asian people having an accent?" And I'm like, Asian people have accents. Lots of people have accents. For me to go out there and go like, this is bad is not fair. And also, not true. It's like, having an accent doesn't make you less smart or less this or less that. It just makes you somebody who has an accent, right?
Well, it actually means that you're actually smarter than most people because you speak two languages.
Right, exactly. Because you've been able to speak two languages. And to me, like,
three or whatever.
Sort of like, to me, to erase that kind of character purely on the basis of it's an accent, and maybe some people are uncomfortable with that, really bothers me. Sure. It's sort of like, I'm not going to erase just a whole chunk of people who have an accent because somebody else thinks it's politically correct. I don't think that's fair either. So, it's a fine line. It's like everybody's going to take a stand about something they don't feel comfortable doing. And that is completely fair.
Right.
But I personally go like, okay, so she's the head of a criminal, blah, blah. Okay, fine. And I read what I'm supposed to do. I'm like, okay, I don't have a beef with this. But that's everybody's individual decision.
Sure. And also a person of power, though, I would think also.
Of course, that goes without saying. But, is that, some people, I'm sure there are some, Italian actors were like, I don't want to play any mafia characters,
Right.
or,
Right.
people who are like, I don't play any drug dealers, or, like that. That is completely your prerogative.
Right. But it kept them employed also. I mean, it
Yeah,
kept a lot of
well, I mean,
actors on The
it sort of
Sopranos for
depends,
years.
right? Well,
Right.
and it depends on, like, yeah, and of course, something like Sopranos is a very high quality show.
Yes.
So you're like, well, the writing is so good. Maybe I do want to play a, you know what I mean?
Sure. Sure.
Um, so each thing has to be kind of like evaluated on its own merits. That's how I feel.